What's going on, everyone? This is Dustin Stelzer with Electrician U. Today we have a guest. We got Chad German. I came across him on Instagram quite a while ago. You're an educator, so you do a lot of educational content as well about electrical, but social media, if you guys are on Instagram, it's Utah Electrician. So Chad, introduce yourself. Tell us what you do and who you are and all that.
Yeah, my name is Chad German. I'm a master electrician here in the state of Utah. Been doing electrical work for pretty much my whole adult life. And then in the last couple months, I've gone full time as the lead electrical instructor at a college down here. We have pretty big deal down here for an apprenticeship. So, so that's kind of my thing. I've done that for a couple years. I was running bigger commercial projects most of my career, as well as being a service manager. Right before I got out of the field, I was running a service division for a company. Yeah, so most of my stuff is doing that, and I've traveled doing Walmarts and hospitals and different things like that. Smith's Marketplace is our grocery store out here. It's very similar to like a super Walmart, and I've done quite a few of those. And yeah, so that's kind of my deal, is just running projects. And I started educating a few years back at nights, teaching at the night. This is a night program here in Utah. It's a 4-year electrical program to get your Journeyman license. And so that's what I'm part of right now.
Okay. So is that something that supplements, like you have contracts or something set up with a bunch of companies that they send their people to school, or is it just a school program for 4 years? So
no, it's a state, the state of Utah. We have to go through 4 years on the job on an apprentice license. So if you want to be an electrician in Utah, you have to find a contractor that will sponsor you with an apprentice license. You go through 4 years on the job training that the company will sign off at the end of your 4 years. And then you also have 4 years of schooling. And that's all done through the state. So I work at Mountain Land Technical College, or MTech, and that is a state college. Like I said, we have 5 campuses. Apprentices, we're pushing close to 1,000 apprentices in an apprenticeship program. That's just at our college. I went to the DATC, which is about an hour and a half north of where I'm at. Same type of program put out by the state. The DATC is a school as well that was a state run. So you go through 4 years of school, and then you have 3 journeyman tests, practical, a theory, and a code. And we have like a 35% to 40% pass rate on that after 4 years of school. So it's pretty hard. And then after that, you wait 4 years and you go take you take 2 more, a theory and a code, to become a master electrician. So it's 8 years to own your own business here in Utah, a minimum.
Okay. Wow. That seems very rigid. That's actually impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's some places like Florida, you just go pass the test and you can be a master electrician. I don't think you have to show any hours.
Right.
So it's kind of, how it is throughout the country. That status is a little different for everybody. So.
Yeah. And it's in the weirdest places too. So like somewhere like Utah, you would think I don't know. I've never been there. My perception of Utah is that there's like a lot of nothing everywhere. So I would feel like it's like small towns and stuff. Like I know there's Salt Lake City and all of that stuff that's big, but you would think places like Florida, where there's just a mecca of people everywhere,
right,
would be so damn stringent on everything. Or, like Virginia, a lot of the like southeast of the United States, there's a lot of just like weird lack of accountability, or like weird, like IEC requirements or things like that, but they're not actually as stringent in those areas.
Right. And I think what I find in that, because I have my own consulting business, I've gone to Mississippi and different places to teach as well with my consulting business. I teach continuing education out here in Utah. So I do a lot of teaching now, but I used to teach Sunday classes, and promote that on my Instagram, and then people would pay, and I'd do Zoom classes. And I'd get people from New York and, Colorado, Texas, like all over the place. And I would teach exam prep. And it's funny because places that have a bigger population, the requirements are, I think it has to do with demand, right? Like if there's too many people that want to get out of the job, they're going to make it rigid so that you have to like go through stuff to get into that, to where if it's like, we need electricians, just come and be an electrician, they take away, like our population is growing just like Texas, and a lot of people moving here. So we're like, our industry out here is just crazy booming, and we are like getting a little bit, like, even though we still have the 3 tests, they made some of those tests a little bit easier because they're trying to make it so that, more people can become journeyman or qualified electricians.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's understandable to have exams to be really difficult, but it's also in a lot of places you can get by without having to have a license for a really, really long time and just kind of be an installer and not have to have that stringent thing and still be able to kind of have a job for yourself. Like here in Austin, just in Texas in general, I wish that it was more stringent. I mean, we still have the, 2 years residential wireman's license, 4 years journeyman, 6 years master, but I find that a lot of people will just be like a 15-year apprentice,
Yeah, we have that too. We do have that. I mean, if you've been in the trade for long enough and you've got skills, you're going to get paid for that. Now,
right.
As far as like if they got to lay people off and they need licenses, we have ratios out here that we have to have on job sites. So usually you can get paid more if those licenses, because you can have the ratio. So when they show up, and if you got a bunch of apprentices, we call them apprentice sources. So if you got a bunch of apprentice sources on a job site and one journeyman, you actually can get fined by the state. So I think we're all very similar. We do have it. It is pretty rigid. A lot of people will go up to Idaho, get their journeyman test, and then it reciprocates after a year. I'm just kind of on what you just said. There's a big difference between a guy that wires up or connects electrical components and an electrician, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But to me, and there's no offense into somebody that puts together a fence, like if you go and install a fence in someone's yard, you're a fence installer, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that living. But, our trade is known as a trade that, I remember getting out of high school and my dad said, go get into the skilled trades. He didn't say, go put up a fence, go be a fence installer. He's like, go get in the trades and see what that can do for you. And I think that as electricians, we're kind of revered, if you will, as a great career outside of college. And for those guys that just go through and do quick installs, you get paid for being a quick install guy. But for somebody that is educated and an electrician, you should get paid according to that. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think that for me, like the hunt for knowledge and constantly seeking, trying to learn more, listening to all the podcasts, all that kind of stuff, like people that want to go that crazy into it, I think they're going to get the reward of being that dedicated for it. But not everybody in the trade needs to be that.
Right. Yeah, I'll teach a code class. And I mean, to be honest with you, I don't want to memorize the code, but
you do a good job. I'll see your videos and you're like pulling out little code refs off the fly.
Yeah. I've spent a lot of time with flashcards and doing different stuff, not for myself, but when directing classes. Like a kid asked, can you pull a cable through a raceway? And I'm like, let's go to 300.5B. Let's go to 300.9. Let's talk about those two codes. And they're like, oh. And so when I'm teaching classes, especially if it's like today, I taught Article 210, which is branch circuits. I have literally Article 90 through Article 230, every heading of every code memorized. I don't have word for word all the codes, but I've worked on that so that when
they change every 3 years, so you're like, you have to go clear all that out.
Yeah, 210.71 was meeting rooms. Now it's 210.65. So it's like, and then if you're not brushed up on it, the way I study with flashcards, my buddy Logan Millington, who is also on Instagram, he's always like, the flashcards things are good, but you'll lose memory if you don't keep up. And he's right. So I study the code in depth as well as do flashcards to keep my memory up. But I tell my students, my point on this is I tell my students, my goal isn't to get you to the point where you're firing off codes. That's pointless for an electrician.
Yeah,
it's absolutely pointless. If you walked up to a guy and like 210.56, you're like, they don't care. But
they're probably going to think like, dude, fuck you. All right.
Yeah, exactly. So at the end of the day, my job as an educator, I have to know that stuff. But my job also as an educator, educating electricians, is I want them to be like better than every electrician when it comes to being able to look up codes, and better yet, knowing those codes that will save them money. I take a lot of time saying like, okay, I teach the air conditioner code that's so popular on social media that you go off the minimum ampacity. And I say, okay, that's cute. Everybody argues about that. And I said, but let's talk about pulling wire in an air conditioning unit, on a bunch of air conditioning units on a Walmart. I've got that all piped back to a panel. And if I don't know that I can pull a number 10, and I go and I think I'm just going to pull a number 8, I have to now push a fish tape through, pull a mule or a true tape through, get a measurement, call that in, get it cut from the parts place on multiple rooftop units when I could have had number 10s pulled in. And I know in my Connex, I have 500 foot spools of number 10 all day long. Now I'm a proficient foreman and I'm making money for a company. And that's where the code can help you to make money. Or the guys that don't want to look at 300.5 on direct burial and they just go 24 inches deep and they're in the middle of a store. And you're like, dude, you're over here renting a Mini X or a backhoe at $300 a day, if not more, plus the fuel, plus the time to dig to 24 inches because you want to go above code. And at the end of the day, I'm throwing it underneath the pea gravel, and I'm still lower than what the code says underneath a slab that's not subject to truck traffic.
Yeah.
And who's going to make more money on that job?
Right.
Me. And at the end of the day, I know it's not all about money, but when it comes to being employed and getting the next big job to run or that office position, that's when the code book makes me money.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a post that I put on my Instagram recently that says the young man knows all the rules, but the old man knows all the exceptions. And I just love that because it's like, sure, knowing everything is great, but like at a certain point, knowing where to break it and all of that stuff on the fly, that experience really is what it's all about. But
yeah, and I think that is hopefully, we use a lot of your material in our we have an LMS called Canvas. So a lot of our guys do stuff online and we'll plug in your videos, other people's videos as well. Yours are more time sensitive and we don't want to play video. We have a thing here called layers of learning where we don't just lecture for 3 hours and we don't watch the video for 3 hours. We want to get them tangibly doing something and then listening to the code, doing the code, and then maybe watching the code, right? And so we want them to have different points of view. So a lot of your videos fit perfect, and we put that into our LMS, and the guys can click on it. It takes them right to your YouTube channel, and they can watch it. And that's a benefit to you because obviously they're exposed to your channel, and they're exposed, and you're getting more views. But on the other end, you're relatable to the students. I'm in charge of bringing in teachers and teacher improvement, and I've had electrical engineers and guys that are very, very smart want to come to the school and teach. I would rather have a brand new journeyman that just got through school that can relate with the guys in class that had just gone through the process than some 65-year-old dude. No offense to that guy, but some 65-year-old guy that hasn't been in the field and he's been doing design builds for a company that knows the code. He doesn't relate
for the last 20 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think
so what do you find that is when you guys are teaching specifically at your school, are you primarily trying to relate everything to code all the time, or are you teaching physical hand skills, hand tools, and things like that?
Yeah. So like I said, we have 3 tests in the state of Utah. We have a practical, we have a journeyman, and we have a practical, we have a code, and we have a theory. So, one of the things, we have teachers that are really, really good at theory. They're not so good at the code. And we have teachers that are really, really good at the code, but not so good. I'm okay at the theory. I'm really good at the code. I just struggle with the theory when it comes to like, sir, I don't understand it. Like, okay, this is how math works. I don't know how to help you with that. There's other guys that are good at that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so with that being said, it's really hard to get everybody on the same page at like, who cares about Article 220 as long as they learn about capacitive circuits, So we have to teach a little bit of all that. The actual number one, the most failed test in the state of Utah is a practical. And that was because we had a lot of things that weren't practical to what we were having them do. Start-stop station, that was something that you would never do out in the field. So guys were trying to memorize how to wire it. Some pipe bands and different stuff. So the states come back when I said they made it easier. I should say they made it more practical. And they have they hand you a line diagram on a more simple concept, and you would wire that up on a board. And so to me, that makes sense, because if you get into industrial, you have to know how to read line diagrams, and they're getting their journeyman in any facet that they would go to. So yeah, we teach you a little bit of everything in the 4 years.
Cool. Do you still have like environments set up where you're having them actually wear tools and they're pulling wire, pulling MC, doing stuff physically that they would be doing in the field?
We don't. We're trying to incorporate some of that into our layers of learning. We've got a new administration. Cliff Karen Campbell's our director, and he's doing a great job. Come in, Lori, who was before us. I love her. She didn't have much support, so she was running around by herself, trying to get a lot of stuff done. Cliff's done a good job building a team, and we're trying to really change that. But I think that the thought of that throughout the state of Utah is they learn the stuff on the job that needs to know on the job, and then the stuff to pass the test and to become everyday electricians kind of thing on in school. So we're trying to mix that up a little bit better and still meet the requirements that the state has us meet. So yeah, it's not one, like I know there's a guy on Instagram that was teaching in California, and it wasn't a school that was like deemed by the state that you have to have. So it was like, hey, if you want to, we have that with HVAC. So the HVAC doesn't deem that you have to go to school to be an HVAC technician. But we do have that in our school. And we have like 50 guys that come and they teach them how to do like the technical end of HVAC. And so it's not required, but it still will help them in their employment. Yeah,
the hard thing seems to be the materials, like having to replace rolls of Romex and rolls of MC that these people are just cutting and ripping through panels, putting knockouts. Yeah. It's like, that's just such an expensive thing for schooling without there being some kind of accreditation, or, I mean, even just to get an accreditation, a lot of times you have to show 2 years worth of graduating classes. And it's like, it's so much money to put up. Difficult thing to do, I think. For you to be able to get more funding, and you don't have to talk too much about like your program in your school, but how does somebody in your position prove to your school that it's worthwhile to put more money into your department so that you can have more resources without there being contests and like football games that prove worth?
So Utah is quite a bit different than most states. I know that we pride ourselves on higher education. We've got a lot of universities and different things out here in Utah that are state-funded universities. I'm considered a state employee as an electrical instructor here. So I don't get too much into that, but sometimes there's grants and there's different things allocated by the state that they'll come out and say, we will put in for that grant, or all the different schools will put in for a grant that they say, we have this money here budgeted for whatever. And that was part of how we got our job, is we're the largest trade school in the state, and there's a ton of them. So that money, on my end, I get a lot of my boss showing up and saying, we have this much money. Can we use it? If not, can we use it for the plumbing? Or do we just tell the state that we don't need that money right now? And as you know, last year we had, I think 6 first year classes, 6 or 7. And right now we have 10 first-year classes with still a huge waiting list. We get people calling all the time, upset that their employees can't join. So the trade is getting bigger and bigger out here. We just can't keep up with how big it's growing, and we can't find teachers fast enough. I had to come up with a hybrid system, which is actually really exciting for me, where they have a teacher in class one of the days, because they go to school 2 days a week. And then the other class, they do Zoom. So I don't know if you know who New Mexico Sparky is on Instagram. He's the chief inspector out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. And, I associate myself with a lot of like-minded people, Paul Abernathy, Ryan Jackson, Michael, Armando's up there with those guys, trust me. And he actually teaches a couple nights a week via Zoom. And so our students are really lucky that they're getting, somebody like Armando that's teaching. So.
Yeah, it's so great that, I feel like with COVID, like it kind of stopped a lot of growth and like productivity and things, but I feel like on some level it connected a lot of us a lot more too. So a lot of opportunities to just like meet people and do stuff like what we're doing right now that normally you would take a flight and try to go sit down and meet with somebody. And I feel like people are connecting more, and as a result, are just able to get more opportunity this way. So.
Right. Yeah. Pre-COVID, I had never done a Zoom meeting before. And now I could honestly say I've probably done about 200, 300 Zoom meetings. So it's just part of the way we operate, you know?
Yeah. No, that's really cool, man. So let's talk about just you as an electrician for a little bit outside of the educator space. When you were actually in the contracting, you said that you did like big Walmarts and stuff. So you're probably pretty familiar with like Novar systems and building management and all that. Have you only done the commercial service side, or what have you done through your career as an electrician?
So I started with a company that primarily did a lot of charter schools, and then did that for quite a while, just the charter schools and basics. I don't want to say smaller commercial, but you know, sometimes you would get a decent sized building, just random commercial here or there. They didn't do any residential. And I did that for quite a few years. And then the economy fell in 2008. And I think we all just kind of found whatever we could do to stay busy. I went to work for a company that is out here in the West. It's pretty big. It's called Salmon Electric, and they have an office in Las Vegas. They have an office in Idaho here, you know. And so when I went there, you kind of, when you sign up for being okay to be out of town, they always send you out of town. That's just, when you get with a big company like that, that's kind of how it is. So I stayed in town for a minute, and then it was kind of like kiss your wife and kids goodbye. And I went and did Walmart's as an apprentice for a little bit. And then I did some Walmarts. I think I ran one in Reno. I did a Kohl. I worked as a remodel on a Kohl's, helping that out. And then that same company that laid me off called me back and gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. So I went back there. I was a journeyman by then, and I was running some charter schools for them. Did a really big networking company with some cool stuff like rectifiers and inverters and generators and multiple things of that nature. And did that for a while. And then the company I'd worked for before, they had a branch off where they did Walmarts and Smith's marketplaces and big grocery stores. So I went back with them. I'm all about the experience, you know, so I never left a company to go wherever the dollar was. I was like, well, this company does, you know, you do enough charter schools, they end up feeling like a big house. You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with residential. I tend to offend people, but I don't want to do that. I just don't like the same type of thing over and over again, you know, lights and outlets. And so once I started doing grocery stores, they're really fun because they got a little bit of everything in them. You know what I mean? And then I wanted to go out on my own, and my original foreman had gone out on his own, and I wasn't quite a master electrician yet. So he hit me up and said, hey man, I'll pay you the same of what you're making running those big jobs if you come and just help me. And I was like thinking to myself, well, I'm going to go out on my own anyway. I can learn either to make it or to break it with him, working as his right-hand man. Or I went with him, and then we built that company together. It was just me, him, and a guy named Garrett. And now the company's gotten pretty big, and it spread throughout the whole Utah Valley out here. And that was really cool. So I started this, you know, I was working with him, did some hospitals, did some restaurants, and did a lot of his commercial while the other guys did residential. And then we brought in some old friends of mine that were foremen and journeymen and started building the company up. And I had a hard time leaving that guy. He's my best friend. And everybody that I was bringing in was like I was picking the employees. So it was like, if I don't like where I'm working, I'm doing it to myself.
Yeah.
So I was going to start my own company. And I did start a contracting company after I got my master's license. I had been teaching for a couple semesters and told them I didn't want to teach anymore. And then I started doing basements. Basements out here are really big. People in Utah build these 4,000 to 6,000 square foot homes. No one's building a normal 2,000 square foot home out here at all. They're just everybody, the average 25-year-old kid, newly married, is buying a 6,000 square foot home. It's the craziest thing. But they have unfinished basements. So they're living and heating these unfinished basements. And they've got these big houses, and they generally find that they can't afford it, so they sell it. But before they sell it, they want to finish the basement. So there's a big market out here to do basements. So when I started my business, I started angling my startup towards basements, thinking I could get out. And I got with a contractor that my brother-in-law, who's an electrician with me, him and I were just destroying these basements. We were just popping them out. And then eventually that guy said, we've got so many of these that either you get 15 employees or you're done. And I wasn't about to just, I have to have some capital. I'm not going to stress about paying guys payroll. And I was like, man, as hard as I've been working, they just undercut me like that. So kind of got a bad taste in my mouth with the contracting thing with you can slave away and then all of a sudden they'll just replace you in a minute. And so I kind of went back to teaching just to sub for a bit. And the students were like, man, thank you so much. This teacher doesn't help. It was just like really rewarding for me to just see that these guys needed help. And I had one teacher that was really good, but for the most part, for my 4 years, my teachers didn't care. You know what I mean? They were just pushing you through. And so I thought, man, I can make a big difference. So I kept teaching. And then I talked to a buddy of mine and I was like, how do I monetize my Instagram? I got something here. I'm either going to stop doing it or doing it, but I got to provide for my family, and this thing's just, and he's like, dude, why don't you ever be a consultant? This guy's a multimillionaire, owns multiple businesses. He buys businesses that are failing and flips them and then makes profit off of them. That's and great. Sells them for what for more than, so he's very business savvy. So he's like, I'll call somebody that's an expert in an industry and talk to him for 3 hours. They give me all their secrets. And he's like, I'll give him $50,000 sometimes. And then I just go take over. And then he's not number one anymore. I am, because I'll perfect what he's doing. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. But the consultant thing rang in my head like, well, I can teach continuing ed. I can teach this. So I looked into our state to see what would happen. And I did it. And I threw it up on Instagram and it took off. Like people all over the state call me. And then had some people out of state call me to go do that. So that's kind of where I'm at. I realized maybe that's my knack. That's my thing is teaching. So I've just put all my eggs in that basket at this point. So.
Me too.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love, I'm sure you've experienced this when you walk up and someone just walks up to you and you have no idea who they are. And they're like, man, thank you so much. Or, I watch your videos. It's rewarding to feel like you're leaving your fingerprint on an industry that you call your career. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So not everybody has that opportunity to make that kind of an impact.
Yeah, and the thing too, like for me as a student, it was always the reason that I fell in love with this trade is there's just so much to know, and so much of it is really difficult stuff to try to wrap your head around because the theory part, it's just it's so theoretical in nature. So just me being in the field and trying to figure things out, that's what got me so excited. And so when I was doing something and I didn't understand and I couldn't figure it out, and I finally got it and it clicked in my head, I was like, oh my God, that's awesome. So then it sends you down like another hole. And it's just that for somebody that has the right mindset, that's kind of thirsty for that likes to learn, this trade is an amazing thing. And so as a teacher, I like that same moment when I see that in somebody else where they're like really trying and going over the top and kind of pushing past all of the other apprentices, and they're really hungry and they're just always trying to read books and everything. It's like, bro, let me give you a hand. All right. Like I see you're hungry, but I love seeing that kind of spark in somebody when they finally.
Yeah. I've suffered with some learning disabilities and different things throughout my life. And so I actually prolonged a little bit becoming an electrician because there was schooling involved, and I did not enjoy
schooling. Of the schooling you didn't want to.
Yeah, I was like, no, it's all math. I don't really want anything to do with it. So I was married and had kids at that point. I got married pretty young though. I think my thing is a lot of my teachers were those guys that were just book smart, and they don't know why you don't understand it. You know what I mean? It's like, well, I covered it. I don't know why you get it. And as I've been teaching here, I would say that before I started teaching, I would say that, I have learning disabilities. I got to work quite a bit harder than everybody else to retain information. I'm going to say that's who we are. And I'm not saying everybody, because I got students that are really, really bright when it comes to just retaining information. But the majority of the guys in our program are the same guys. They're just like me. So when I went through the electrical apprenticeship program, within the first 6 months, my teacher called 4 of us up and said, hey man, you guys aren't there's no way you could pass this. Might as well pick up your stuff and get out of here. And the other dudes are like, cool, sweet, see ya. They pick up their stuff. Well, I'm a married guy with kids. And at that point, I have a son with visual impairment. And so I had a baby that was visually impaired, and we threw everything away for me to, like, we sold our house, and then we went and moved into a duplex in Rose Park, which is kind of the a rougher area in Salt Lake, you know. And so I sold my house, went and all cards in on this thing, and I'm sitting here going, I just am getting told in first year that I'm done, you know. And I was just defeated. And the teacher after a break goes, hey, German, I asked you to leave. And I'm like, look, dude, I paid for school. Right? I know I'm not going to pass, but maybe while I'm sitting here, something will click. And then when I go through this again, I'll have a little upper hand and said, I won't have to relearn. He goes, no, I want you to leave. And then one of my coworkers or one of my co-students was like, no, that's messed up. He doesn't leave. If he leaves, we all leave. And one of them got up and went and got the director of the program, who then got on the teacher, and I don't think he lasted the semester. And then those co-students on my off nights, they were saying, let's come to our house, and we had barbecues, and my fellow students helped teach me. And literally what it was, I just needed to learn how I learn. You know, back in high school, no one cared to help me learn how I learn. It was just like, oh, you struggle, go sit in your class, go sit in your seat. And it was like I was doing multiplication every year over and over. And I'm like, dude, of course I'm not going to try this. It's stupid. So we busted our butts, and I got my journeyman, I got my master's. I'm one of the only guys out of that class to do that. And I think that I take the approach while I'm teaching that I care that they don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So all these concepts, ambient temperature correction, Article 220, capacitive reactive circuits, all those things I have mastered because those things kick the trash out of me, right? But the thing is I know where those guys' disconnects are because I've had those disconnects. So when I'm teaching this, you know, a parallel circuit, and I'm saying breaking down resistors, if you're using the reciprocal method to break down those resistors, the reciprocal of the sum of the reciprocals is, you guys forget to hit reciprocal one time. What does that look like? It's the reciprocal of the sum. This is what it looks like, right? You guys are going to forget this. And they always, oh, I did what you told me I was going to do. And it changes the environment instead of, he just went over that, but he's already on to something else. And I can't figure out what I did. You know, I literally had a student that wasn't using his calculator right. And he was beating himself up because he thought he was stupid. And it literally is that he had just changed his calculator. So something like that could cripple somebody, you know, in their education.
Yeah.
So I think, like you said, back to what you were saying, if you love it and you get it, you can help anybody. Like with your videos, you're helping tons of my students are like, hey, go follow Electrician U. I got this from him, you know, and I'm like, awesome. You know, at the end of the day, you know, you ask somebody who's the best basketball player in the world, you're going to get different answers. You know, some might lean towards more, like there might be one or two players that everybody says, but we need all those players to make it so that they can, not one person's going to relate with everybody. And I think that's what's cool about social media and what we got going on right now. I didn't have YouTube to look at. I didn't have anything like that going through school. I had a guy that was just like, well, if you didn't get it, have fun. And I'd go study for hours, you know? And so now, well, what I feel like we provide is as an outlet for people, like maybe they don't relate with Chad German. So they go to Paul Abernathy and they're like, oh, I love listening to the podcast of Paul Abernathy, or man, I like Ryan's style of teaching, Ryan Jackson, or hey man, you know, Dustin with the Electrician U, like the way he presents it just makes sense to me. You know, so I think it's important that people know about our platform. So I appreciate being here and being able to talk to you about it. So,
yeah, I just I realized recently that there was nobody making any content really for the longest time, which is why I started YouTube stuff, because I was like, I just wanted to watch videos. And so somebody's got to make them. So like, screw it, I'll just start making them. And then I noticed there were other people like on Instagram that were starting to like educate or do certain things. And it's like, whoa, we need way more of this. And we need to amplify the voices of the people that do care and that are out there trying to do something about the trades, especially, the whole skills gap problem, which kind of seems nowadays like the tides are turning really. The more that I talk, it's like even what you're experiencing, there's just so many people coming into the trades now that I don't know. I don't even know how we gauge whether or not the skills gap has been fixed, and we probably won't for another 20 years when all these people start retiring. But anyway, right. I think that we just need to be amplifying people. And so like people like you, where I see your stuff, I follow you on Instagram, you put out quality content. So it's like, yeah, dude, I need to get this guy on and at least just let other people see him, because you explain things in a different way. When I watch you talk about code stuff, I'll actually sit and listen to your whole story or whatever you got going on for a few minutes. If it's something relevant, there's a lot of stuff that you'll talk about that I have no clue about, or it's an environment I haven't worked in, or it's just something I haven't thought of, and you'll put it in a different way. So I don't know Ryan Jackson. I've heard his name, and like people have just suggested that I go check out his stuff. But it's something I keep hearing often. So that's another thing that I need to do is check it out. But anybody, there's a guy the other day that we interviewed that's a locomotive electrician, and he just sat here and talked forever about how he works in a train yard and how these big trains work. And I'm like, Jesus, this is so cool. So I really just love connecting with people.
No, I think it's cool. I think the cool part is that if people know that we're always learning, it's the same thing I look at. I actually watch the way people present, not in a manner like, oh, he presents better than me, or, oh, I present better than him. But I feel like yesterday I was teaching a class and I was trying to teach about the neutral point with the ground and the neutral. We had your video in, I watched it. I had guys watch it and they're looking at it. A couple guys had questions, and I'm trying to articulate this. And finally, I just drew on the board a circuit and going back to a panel, going back to the meter. And I said, okay, this ground isn't hooked to the neutral point. What will happen when there's a ground fault here? Will it trip the breaker? Guys just like instantly, okay, got it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I love teaching, because if you come and you just cover material, teaching it's not fun. You know what I mean? The teaching is, I just covered this and this. If you didn't get it on me, but when you're helping, I found it in my career as a foreman. I got told all the time when I was a foreman, you're kind of a jerk. You put a lot of pressure. You ride us, and you will outwork it. You'll stay later than all of us to try to outprove us that you can stay later. And I'm like, no, we just got to get stuff done, right?
Yeah.
But they're like, the number one thing we love about you is that you've always taught us. People have always told me that, like, dude, you teach me everything I've learned that was good. You've taught me. And so I went through a thing where, hey man, can you help me with this? And my foreman would be like, the smartest guy on the job is a fourth year in school. Go over there. I've been doing this 20 years. I haven't taken my journeyman test, 25 years ago or whatever. You're like, really? I got to go ask another guy that's in school learning it. And so I think that that was why I was like, hey, if I know it, I want to help my guys. And it's just naturally I think you and I are very similar. We naturally like to teach.
Yeah.
So it's just naturally who we are. I don't think it's an ego thing, because trust me, we both know on social media, we get heckled and we get harassed a ton by people. The fake page thing, when you posted up the other day, I've been dealing with that for 4 years, man, with people just coming up with stuff and so it's easy to just walk away, but it's those people that you're making a difference in their lives as you teach. Again, I'm leaving my fingerprint on what I do the most, which is work. You know what I mean? We all are in that situation. So
yeah. A thing that I like about the whole social media aspect of all of this is that it's a level of accountability. So when you're on your own, like as a master electrician, I'm out in the field doing work, filming what I'm doing, putting stuff. Normally, nobody's watching, right? So you can kind of get away doing whatever you want because you're the master. But putting your work out there for everybody to judge and trying to teach and just putting everything out on the line, I think it takes balls. Like it takes a lot doing what you do to like spout out code and be on a job site talking about stuff, because just the nature of the trade is that we're going to have all these haters. Electricians are kind of assholes and we all think that we know more than everybody else. But I think like just the accountability and the ability to put yourself out there in the first place is a really admirable thing. So all that to say, like, keep doing what you're doing, man. You're doing a really good job.
Yeah. I think it's important. I think it's cool because if I'm wrong, I'll be proven I'm wrong.
Right. And then you'll learn something.
I'm wrong all the time, right? So there's other times where it's like, I have a question and then whoever I ask, I'm not going to name names, they're like, don't worry about that. And then they hit me up later and they're like, hey dude, I just ran into an email from somebody in the situation you asked about. I'm okay. I was reading that code and I was wondering if this is what it was talking about. I was like, yeah, that's exactly what it was talking about. So it's like, okay, even though that doesn't happen all the time, I know a code.
Yeah.
That,
it still happens.
I didn't know about.
Yeah, that's the thing too. I think that's worth admitting and telling people is that we're wrong. Like it happens. We will misinterpret something. We'll try to apply something somewhere. And then you go back later and you're like, oh shit, I shouldn't have done that. Or I should have done that.
Yeah.
We're human, dude. We're just electricians that, we're still doing this stuff. We're still running across problems and just trying to share what we do know. But fuck, this stuff changes all the time. So it's really
absolutely
hard to be right all the time and get every single thing right. And I've never met an electrician my entire career that's doing it all right, that knows it all, that's getting it all right.
I know a lot of guys that think they are, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I think it's cool because a lot of guys are, what was I going to say? I think it's cool because I don't know if I don't want to call it competition. People that start doing obviously you saw my stuff, you want to bring me on. I've been watching your stuff. I was in the same boat where I was like, if I'm going to make content, I might as well put it on YouTube. So I go and I look up electricians on YouTube, Dustin Seltzer, Journey to Master, or whatever your first thing was, like Electrician U. And I'm like, there's already somebody doing it, which I could still put my take on it. But
we need like 20 more people, dude. Do it. Yeah. We need more.
People are always telling me like, man, you should do a YouTube. You should do this. And I was working with another guy that was like, other guys are doing this and this. You should do this. And I'm like, I'm not going to do what other people are doing. That doesn't make any sense to me. If I do something, it's because it's who I am. So when you tell me you like my style, that's cool because I thought like, I want to be present in the situation, showing the code violation and then beyond. I want my videos. First of all, I'm horrible at editing. I'm horrible at technology and computers. So if I can poke my phone up, click the button, record, unclick it, post it, move on with my day, I'm completely fine. Yeah. But somebody like you, a little bit more high energy, you get into more depth, you can take a little bit more time on a video, that's awesome. So I think that we've hit those different parts of the mind and we have different people that are like, I'm going to sit. My father-in-law is a YouTube junkie, right? Like he'll just sit and watch YouTube for hours to where, my wife and I will flip through TikTok or we'll flip through Instagram for a minute, put our phone down and we're playing with our kids or we're, I'm not looking up too many YouTube videos. And if I do, it's to learn something new. Like, okay, I'm going to look up this and see an article 200, who's got something with that. So I think we hit different type of styles and that's okay. But I do want to say there's going to be people that see what we're doing and I see it right now and they start doing very similar, if not the same things. And that's okay. Back in the day when I started with tools, DeWalt was the number one. Everybody had DeWalt and we had a drill, a Sawzall, and then impact drivers came in and we had drill, Sawzall, impact driver. And then I remember my old foreman walking around with a little knife, like a Bosch, maybe 12 volt or something, little drill. And we called him Barbie doll because
the little itty bitty ones that would fit.
Yeah, he got a little impact driver. Now
I use those just for putting plugs in. Yeah,
everybody has the impact driver, and they've got staplers and they've got saw, like everything that you can imagine. Because social media and because it started a competition and like, free advertising on social media, we could throw it out there. It's created so that everybody wants to be part of it and everybody's changing it and people are posting it. It's the same thing with us. Code, who would have thought 5 years ago? I have another guy that tags me on every code post that he does on Instagram. He's a younger guy. He's sitting in his truck. Every time he does a code post, he's tagged Utah Electrician on it. And is he kind of doing the similar stuff? I had one guy DM me like, look, he's trying to be you. And I'm like, no, he isn't. He's not as fluent. Well, he's also just learning, and what he's doing is going to put him well ahead of where you're at watching it. You know what I mean? And so ultimately, I think it's cool that what we have with social media, being a smart electrician is going to be like the cool thing. I think that's
so too.
Awesome.
Yeah. And one thing for you, just as somebody that has been making content kind of like at scale on a lot of platforms, I think that your knowledge and the way you like to present it it's possible for you to present that in a lot of different ways. So I know that pulling your phone out and talking is like native to kind of an Instagram and TikTok environment, right? Like that just seems relevant. So what I do when I'm out in a field is I do that, and then I do this, and I redo what I've just done.
Oh, okay.
Or I film it because YouTube is horizontal. And so I'll just keep recording, and I'll record other things, and I'll take video. Seriously, I'll take
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'll just move my camera, because movement is sexy. You don't ever want to just film something like this. You kind of want to like move it a little bit. But it's just, I get extra supplemental stuff. And so I'll take a lot of the same types of things and repurpose it into a long format video, because on YouTube, I know people are only going to watch my videos on YouTube when they're sitting at home and they got nothing going on and they want to binge for like 32 minutes to an hour and listen to us talk. But that's only one type of content. So there's 3 different types of content. This is what YouTube actually taught me, that there's 3 different types of viewers of content. And there's the people that have nothing but time to kill, and they're going to want to watch something long. So you, like Joe Rogan podcasts, you're not going to listen to those like in the middle of your workday, you know, but there's a time and a place for that type of content. Then you've got the person that's just like sitting at lunch, right? Like they don't have 3 hours to watch content, but they might have like 15 minutes to watch something. So it's a little bit different kind of content. And then lastly, you have the person that's like sitting by waiting for a bus, and they've got like a couple minutes before a meeting or some kind of thing, and they're just scrolling through TikTok because they've only got a little bit of time. But I think that if this whole content creation thing for you, if you really want to reach kind of a larger scale audience, I think just making your personality and your message and your style available on every platform that you can, I think it's just going to help you reach more people. But it is going to make you busier, and you're going to have to figure out like somebody to help you edit and put stuff together.
Yeah, and I've had a few students that are like, hey, let me do this and this and that. I had a guy show up to my class and, hey, I want to be your manager for them. I'm like, dude, I can't. At the time I was running a service division, and I was teaching at nights, and I got 4 kids and a wife, you know. But the whole horizontal thing makes a lot of sense to me. I'm in a situation too. My personality in real life is a lot different, obviously, than the camera, like, 310.50, you know, and I can fall into that code nerddom that some
in small chunks.
That's why I try to keep it short, because if you get to code nerddom for a couple hours, a good way to put myself to sleep, put in a code video. You know what I mean? Usually my wife will be like, oh, that guy's voice is annoying. And she'll leave the room and go to sleep on the couch. And so I that's one of the reasons I do keep it small. You know, I have my nephews and nieces and my kids and family, friends. And like I said, my boss at Gardner Electric was up in Ogden, which is 2 hours north of me. And he could hear my voice. And he was like, oh, the heck's Chad? And his wife's like, I hear Chad too. And he looked in front of him in line, and there's a dude watching my Instagram. And he's like, hey, Chad works for me. And the guy's like, what are you talking about? Chad owns Gardner. He's like, I am Brandon Gardner. Chad doesn't own So I look at it like I have a lot, like even with the college, my personality, I'm a construction worker, first of all. I've got a quick fuse. I've got a lot of things about me that are, I'm funny. But I have to keep it representative of everybody that's kind of who I represent. Does that make sense? So I kind of envy guys like yourself that are like just throwing it out there, and you're just
I rep me. Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out a way to do that for myself, is to put myself out there a little bit more and not worry so much. So like today I recorded a class of me teaching, because somebody said, I've never seen you teach just other than your setup. People are like, how long does it take you to set up and think of codes before you spit it? I'm like, there's a vending machine. Let's go do 220.5 on GFI protection for a vending machine. And so, you know, sometimes hey, record this, and then I'll stand there and do my thing and maybe I talk too fast, so I need to do that again. Or I if you misslip one word, people were going to hit you up and be like, this kind of conductor, and you meant this. So there's a few times I take a couple takes, but I usually do it off the whim. But I want to hit more people, because I think I can help more people, but I don't want to be one of those guys that it's like, there's people that I know that are Instagram famous or YouTube famous, that their whole personality and everything changes. It's like all of a sudden I'm famous, I like to see the guys and just, one kid the other day, I get this look when people meet me, they'll just kind of smirk at me and look, and I'm like, what? I'm shorter than you thought? And they go, hey, how did you know what I was thinking? Because I'm 5'7" and I take my videos up, upwards in face. And
that vertical thing, it's tricky.
Yeah. So one kid goes, he's in school. He goes, hey, I follow your videos, and why don't you own your own contracting company? Why don't you do this? And I was just kind of explaining to him, and he goes, he's giving me that look, and I go, what? I'm shorter than you thought? And he goes, yeah, that belly came out of nowhere too, dude. That made I died. I see that kid all the time, and I was always like, if I'm like, I have a Pepsi here, so I'll be like pointing at the Pepsi, or I'll have a Diet Pepsi, like, hey, I'm listening to you. So making those connections. Some people take it so serious that it's like, why would you talk to me that way? You know what I mean? I don't want to go.
Yeah,
but that kid had me laughing so damn hard.
Oh man, it's funny because I'll get people too that like I'll respond to a comment or something, and they're like, oh my God, you answered. And it's like, well, yeah, I'm just a fucking dude. Like, I'm just like people, I don't know, man. I've had people at Home Depot walk up to me and they're like, oh my God, I watch your videos. And it's like, bro, calm down. Like, see that guy over there checking out and buying a plug right now? I'm the same fucking thing. I just happen to record myself.
I think people put that number on our page. Like, well, this guy's a guy from Utah and he has this big thing. Now, that's not to say that's not something to be happy about. Like the work we put in. I've had my Instagram page for a few years now. So all these guys that are like, how did you get your page? Did you buy them? I'm like, no, dude. And I finally got a first offer. I've got my first offer with the tool company to, that's kind of an Instagram thing. I started with some tool companies repping, and it wasn't an educational thing. I was doing just me on the job and doing stuff. And then it turned into educational because that's where I turned my career. But I got one that offered me kind of an offer I couldn't refuse for a lot of money. And I'm like, what's the kick here? Like I keep emailing them like, am I going to do this? And my wife goes, that kind of money for 4 years of work, that ain't nuts. Like we're not getting rich off this. You know what I mean? So I don't think people know the work you put in on an Instagram page. There's one reason I don't sit and put a lot of work into Instagram page, because it's a lot of work and I've got education going on and I got this. You have to be dying because you're doing your business, you're doing your personal, and you're doing the YouTube. It's not like, oh, he's lucky he's an Instagram guy, so he's making a boatload of money. No, dude. That's not.
Bro, I'm recently divorced because I'm so incredibly just dialed the fuck in 20 hours a day. I was having this conversation the other day. Somebody was talking about the 410s that they work and how they're just so stressed out about how much they work. I'm like, bro, fuck you. I work 20 fucking hours a day, 7 days a week for the last 5 years. I haven't taken a fucking day off. Like, I don't want to hear about your 4 days.
4 days a week with
your 3 day weekends.
That means you have 3 days off to do whatever you want.
Yeah. I'm like, dude, I'm going to wake up at 4 a.m. and I'm not going to stop working until midnight till I get off the phone with China from some shit that I'm building for my 6th fucking company that I own, and I'm like doing yeah. And you I'm really passionate about that.
You put yourself out there, and all of a sudden you just become busier too. Like I've turned a lot away. I mean, I got a LinkedIn page, and I thought, okay, I'll just put a professional profile there. I'm like, holy cow, I'm turning away things that I wish I could do. I just don't have time for. You know what I mean? Yeah. But in order to go anywhere, you have to push yourself. You put yourself out there. I think there's a happy medium on why. I always ask my question, why are you doing what you're doing? So when people would say, why do you do Instagram? I don't know. Now I got to think about why I want to do Instagram. I need to spend money. I need to have that money coming in for my family. My wife stays at home. We have a son with a visual impairment. And so, I make good money, but there's a lot of my apprentices that's wives makes good money and they make decent money. They make more than I do. You know what I mean? So we're living on a fixed income. And so if I can make money, I just assume that eventually putting this stuff out there will take off in some way, and it does. When I have to do continuing ed and I get booked up with continuing ed classes, there's a financial freedom that I hope will happen off of that. I get great benefits through the state I wouldn't have had if I wouldn't have put myself out there as an instructor and a teacher. So I think ultimately, for if anybody's out there listening, I didn't think I was going to be a full-time educator. I love the trade, and I learned the love of the trade from Brandon Gardner, who I just left as an employee. He was my employer, and that was one of the reasons I couldn't leave him to go start my own. I just chasing money, running around in a van, wiring things up and wanting to get paid wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to work with my best friend who taught me the love of the trade. And then I realized I want to be that guy that teaches the love of the trade to other people, and it's contagious. You know what I mean? Like my biggest accomplishments are seeing other people succeed, and they love the trade more than me, which is hard to do. You know what I mean? And so I think that's where the respect comes in with all the guys that are educators. They wouldn't have a big name and they wouldn't be doing it, because typically education doesn't pay a lot if they didn't love what they were doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. I think the ability to pass on knowledge, I think anybody has, but I think most people just want to work. I think it's a rare thing to have somebody that has like a true desire to teach above the work, you know, because it's one thing to be in love with like going out and doing this for a job. But the desire to like pass that stuff on, I guess I'm the same way. I think you and I are both very similar in that, like when I started making videos, it wasn't about making money. It was just like, I want to share this stuff with somebody, and I don't have any good apprentices around me or the people that give a shit to talk about this stuff. So I'm just going to like maybe connect with somebody out there who does want to see all of this stuff. So but yeah, I didn't think in a million years that I was going to be able to like sustain myself with making YouTubes and videos and like sharing stuff with people. It's kind of nuts how it's changed everything.
Yeah, I think it's natural when you look at a lot of successful people. I got a guy's name, or I can't think of his name. I got a guy I'm thinking of that's huge on social media, and he's an entrepreneur, makes a ton of money, and he's doing seminars, he's doing all these things, and you can tell, I want to say his name is Grant. Is that his first name or last name?
Grant Cardone.
Yeah, Grant Cardone. So the dude, maybe people don't agree with his philosophy on cash flow or whatever he teaches. I don't really even listen to what he's saying, to be honest with you. But I do watch him and the way he presents and the way he talks. The dude's got enough money that he could be sitting on an island somewhere. You know what I mean? But he wants to share what it is that he has done to get to the point where he is. There's no reason he has to. He's got so much money. He doesn't have to put that out there for the world. But that's what he naturally wants to do. You know, and I think us as humans, once we get to a certain status, we got to that top of the ladder and we're like, okay, we put our hand down. We want to help people climb up the ladder as well. You know, I think we give ourselves bad credit on humanity is kind of screwed up. But at the end of the day, I think that's a natural thing. As you work hard, you want to tell your story. You want that to fall down. You don't work your head off to then die, but nobody know who you are. You want to bring that up and make that naturally grow. And so I think that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree too. Like not even, I think just making sure that the craft that we've learned for so long stays, you know, moving forward and like, not just helping one person, but like really caring about the entire idea of being a craftsman and, you know, being an electrician. A lot of the instructors that I've met, there's that thing in common where it's like, I put all this time in and I'm not going to let this falter. You know, this trade, this is my trade, this is my craft, and it's my turn now to hold it all up. I think we just need more people, which is again why I think promoting you and all of us that are doing this, helping promote each other, and like anybody else that wants to do it. I always tell people, if you want to make a YouTube channel, like I'll set up a Zoom call and I will show you what buttons to click, who to fucking talk to. I'll show you all of it. I won't charge you anything, but we need more people that are like kind of the mainframe structure of the trades that are moving forward. How old are you?
I'm 43. I'll be
okay, so you're still a young guy. There's lots
44 this year. It feels like every year. I blink, I get older. No, it goes by fast.
2 decades of your life before you're even going to think about retiring. So there's just so much more time for you to be able to spread your knowledge to people, and it's a long time.
Yeah, I think ideally when I think of my situation with my career, you know, starting to become a full-time educator at 43 is not a bad deal. You know, you hear guys like, I've been teaching for 60 years. That's fine, but there's no way you got 20 20 years of experience in the field. I was just talking about Armando. I can introduce you to him. He's the coolest guy, but him and I with code, and I'll tell you some other things about him later. But I was like, Armando, you've got 20 years in the field with really good experience. And then you've been inspecting. So him and I will talk about codes. For an example, 210.8A1 is GFI protection for bathrooms. Well, 210.8A9 says you have to have, if there's an outlet within 6 feet, that outlet has to be GFI protected, 6 feet from a shower. And I was like, well, it just said bathroom, so why wouldn't shower be in there? So I call Armando. I'm like, how often are you inspecting jobs that you see a shower outside of a bathroom? Yeah. Why is it this way? And he goes, actually, there was a garage that had a shower in it, and there was an outlet within 6 feet. It had to be GFI protected. And I'm like, okay, I've never installed that. I've never done that as an instructor. I've always wondered, but that makes sense. So now I can relay that message to my students. So he's 20 years in the field, 20 years, not 20 years as a inspector, but he's an chief inspector out of Albuquerque. And now he's starting to teach. Man, that guy's going to be a triple threat. There's nobody that I know that has that much experience in all these things. I know of a guy that's taught for 40 years and had 5 years in the trade. I know another guy that had 3 years in the trade and taught for 20 something years. But, that good balance stuff, there are going to be guys doing it. And I think it takes putting ourselves out there for other people to want to do it, to have those kind of statistics.
Yeah, I agree.
So, but it's cool. Like Ryan Jackson, he's a code guy. And he's an inspector at 22. So he's seen a lot more installations than I ever have, because I've seen my installs and maybe helped on a few other people's jobs. And then he knows the code book. So even though he hasn't been the guy putting up the conduit or using the practical skills to get that done, he has seen 1 million and something installations and knows the code book. So it's kind of cool to hear from everybody's perspective, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's all valid too. There's always just different things to offer. So that's great. I'm gonna start checking his stuff out. I've just heard his name enough times now that I need to go check it out.
Yeah.
But I also don't have free time. Like, I'm rarely, if I'm on Instagram, it's because I'm posting something on Instagram. And if I just happen to catch your name on your thing, I'll watch your thing. But like, I'm not scrolling on TikTok. I'm posting. And so
the way Instagram works too, if you look, like I've always got those same 4 or 5 people. When it shows their stories, I'll watch their stories and I'll only get maybe 10 stories deep and be done. The next day it's the same 10. I'm like, I know those aren't the only people that I follow that I see their stories. And then when it comes to scrolling, you're not seeing it in an order. You're seeing it in like how it shuffles for what you've clicked on, right? So
yeah, all of them are feeding you what you want to be fed.
Like Armando actually will say to me, like, man, you didn't see my post. And I'm like, yeah, you're my best friend, but I didn't see your post because I didn't look up New Mexico Sparky and look at it, right? What I mean? So Instagram is a little weird. I get hit up a lot with people, which one of my coworkers is like, Chad, the only reason I think you need to worry about Instagram, he's like, I know you're not worried about the money. That I'm over here saying I need money, but money doesn't motivate me, even though I need it, right? So I'm not big on like I want to be rich, even though that wouldn't hurt. So one thing he said was, one thing that sucks about you only posting on TikTok and Instagram and a lot of the stuff I've done on my YouTube, it isn't to make a YouTube. It's like, we're going to embed this from YouTube to like, I'll make videos specific for the instruction here at the school. And when I make that, we embed it just like I embed your stuff. Mm-hmm. Like if I look up 200.4 and it's not there, I'm not going to take your video because it's not there. So I'll go make a video, put it on my YouTube. I did one about 600.5 the other day, disconnects for a sign. That wasn't it wasn't on YouTube. So I put it in there, we embed it. And he's like, the thing is you get hit up a lot with people saying, Chad, you did a video about this. I can't find it, because it just gets buried in my content that they know, like, oh, Chad, you asked a question about, or you did a video about this that was awesome, and I can't find your content. So that's the only thing that's really motivating me to do a YouTube, is so that when people see my stuff and they want to remember it, they can look it up and find it instead of scrolling through all my content. Because I have Sparky EDU, I'm a part of Utah Electrician, and then I have a little consulting page I don't post on. And then
what is Sparky EDU? Because I see like two different kinds of posts from you from time to time.
Yeah, so Sparky EDU is a thought that I had a couple years back, maybe a year or so ago, where I was just like, the education thing wasn't big on Instagram. It was just me. And I was always talking code with certain dudes. And I was like, why aren't these guys sharing their electrical knowledge and their code? And then I thought, well, I was just thinking about the same stuff we've been talking about. Like, it'd be cool if there was another Instagram page that was educational, but it wasn't just my perspective. So I hit up, I think it was 6 different guys, and just said, Chris with Gentech Power, he's a generator guy. Sparky Pride, Tyler, he was one of my students. He's really good at theory. Armando's good at the code. Ryan Jackson's good at the code. And then Kyle Figueroa is really good with just everyday electrical stuff. And then we have Evan, who does a lot of safety stuff with NFPA 70. So I just hit these guys up because we had our own little things we were good at. And like, hey, what do you guys think about making this page? We all take a day to post. And, I was going to have everybody just stick to their specific topics, but I'm like, no, because we're all still electricians. Yeah. And it's kind of hard to post. We all get busy and we all have our day. Like my day was yesterday and I did not get around to a post, but it literally is to just spread free knowledge to people, okay. In order, they don't have to go buy $2,000 worth of books and then sit there and watch the books and watch long videos to be able to learn a simple concept. They could learn it by keeping up on a page. So that's what that was about. I appreciate your time, man, and taking the time out of your day to make this happen. And I think that it's awesome what you do. So I love your content. And I know that it's, like I say to Ryan, to know all this code and to be where I'm at, I know the work that I put in. I know for a fact, I got to give you credit for all the hard work that you put in to your videos to give back to other people. You know what I mean?
Thank you. So I appreciate that, man. And yeah, likewise, same thing. Just keep doing what you're doing. And I'd love to do another one of these just, to help, like, as you grow. I think just people seeing your face and seeing your personality, your perspective, checking out your Instagram and everything, I think it'll just help. So let's keep in touch. Plug yourself really quick. What's your actual @ on Instagram and on TikTok?
So on Instagram, I'm Utah_Electrician, and TikTok, I think it's just Chad German 1. I think there was already a Chad German, so I put a 1 on that. I think the next name was Chad German 1. And then, YouTube, I just have Chad German, but it's the YouTube content is you're going to find on my TikTok and my Instagram. I usually do short videos and just kind of compile them together to make a big one and put that on YouTube. So
thank you.
No, that's fine.
And I really appreciate it.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you too. Keep going, man. I love your stuff. So,
all right. Have fun teaching, buddy. Take it easy.
Yeah, you too. Okay, bye.
Best music and video.